Hello everyone, it's your girl Tara, and this is a Tara Talks video. I'll be talking to you about my dad, how my life was affected while he was living, and how his death affected my life. Me and my daughter were talking earlier today. Sometimes when I'm talking to her, I ask her, have you talked to your daddy? And she'd be like, no. My daughter and her dad, they don't really have much of a relationship. And like sometimes when she tells me that, I kind of feel guilty, or I feel bad that, you know, she don't have that, like what I had in my father. Like my dad, you know, even as a grown woman, there was not a time when if something bad had happened, it wasn't a time when I called him and he didn't come. When she tells me, you know, that her and her dad don't have much of a relationship, I kind of feel bad, and I'll be like, you know, I wish she had, you know, a dad that she could call on like I could call on my dad. So that's what made me want to do this video, because my dad was Superman to me in my life. As I've said before, I am my mom's youngest child. So I'm my mom's baby. I was my dad's baby until I was about 9, 10, 11. I don't really remember. I have to find out. I have a younger sister. Hopefully one day I can do a video with her and let you all meet my younger sister. But yeah, I was the baby for some years. My mom and my dad's baby. And I remember when my younger sister's mom got pregnant with her. And I remember my dad coming to the house, and he was so excited to tell me this news. My dad always called me Miss Longhead. That was what he always called me. The reason for him calling me that was because he said when he first saw me after I was first born, the first thing he said he noticed was that I had a long head. But I really think he noticed that I have a long neck, because to me I have a long neck. So I think he really meant long neck, but his name for me was always Miss Longhead. But I remember him coming to the house, so excited. And he said, Miss Longhead, come here. He called me in the kitchen, and my mama was sitting in the kitchen. And he was like, you about to have a little sister or brother. You ain't gonna be the baby no more. And I must have burst out crying. I started crying because all I knew was I was my mom and my daddy's baby. And I remember my mama starting fussing at him, cussing at him, dancing, why are you coming to her? Tell her this. I guess he thought it would be good news for me, but to me it wasn't. To me it was him telling me that I'm not going to be his baby no more. So I remember my mom coming to console me, and she was like, well, that's okay, you still going to be my baby. When my dad met my mom, she was living in the projects, Butler Housing Projects in Fort Worth, Texas. I don't remember much about staying there. I know I went to preschool when we were living there. I remember him getting us a house in this neighborhood known as Berry Hill, and we left the projects when I was 5. And I don't know how long after we got to that house, my dad ended up leaving my mom for another woman. I remember bits and pieces of growing up in the household with him and my mom. And I don't think I liked my dad when he was living in the home with us, because to me he seemed so mean. He was Muslim, and he was like a tough disciplinarian. He was like military. I think I was just scared because he was hard on the boys, and I always thought that if I did something, he would be hard on me like he was on the boys. So I had this fear of him. And one day, I had did something at school. I don't know what I had did. This was before he left. And I remember my mama saying, "I'm going to tell your daddy when he get home." That was the most scariest moment of my life, because I was like, when she tell my daddy, he gonna kill me. And I remember him coming home, and I was just looking at him. I was just scared when he walked in the door, and my mama knew I was scared, and she started telling him whatever it was that I did. I don't know what I had done. And I just looked up at my daddy, and I just started crying, because I'm thinking, he gonna whoop me. And I remember my dad picking me up and patting me, saying, "Oh, I'm not gonna whoop you. He ain't doing anything to me." My dad actually never disciplined me, ever. But I just had a fear of him because I saw him discipline the boys. And plus, I didn't like how he treated my mom. He was not a very good husband. I never saw him physically abuse my mom, but I can remember hearing him, like verbally abuse her. So one day I came home from school. I was in kindergarten by this time, and the furniture was gone. And I think I said, "What happened to all the furniture?" And I think my sister told me that my daddy had left us. And I just remember being happy that he was gone, because he was Muslim. We couldn't celebrate holidays, and he was like a neat freak. I remember him lining us, all the kids, up to check our fingernails, because he didn't want our fingernails to get too long so they wouldn't be dirty. And I remember I would bite my nails, because if they were too long, he would cut them with them fingernail clips until they was almost bleak. So by the time he got to me, I had done bit my nails all the way down. But when he left us, I was like, we's free. We can have Christmas. We can have Thanksgiving. Him leaving us wasn't a big deal to me. Plus, I don't know how my mom did it. He left our beds, but I think he even took the stove. And I don't remember us going without anything for a period of time. I don't know how soon my mom put the stuff back in that he took, but she went to work, working 2 jobs, and put that stuff right back in the house. Whatever he had taken, she made sure it was right back there. And we started having Christmases and holidays and stuff, and that's what I love. But I just remember kind of building up a resentment toward him, because just remembering, what he did to my mom, leaving her for another woman, for my mom. And to me, I always thought I was closer to my mom, because I remember him leaving us, and my mom, staying there making sure that we still had things that he had taken. But he just didn't leave my mom and never come see about us no more. He would still come over maybe once or twice a week, if not more. And I remember being mad at my mama just for still because even once he left and he would come over there, she would just let him run the house when he got there, he was still living there. And I kind of looked at her weak for letting him, still come over there and run shit after he had left. So I kind of always had that inside of me, remembering how he left us and how he treated my mom. I don't think he ever stopped providing for us. We were getting checks. Each one of us kids was getting checks. The time I got home early from school, I got the mail out the mailbox, and there was a check. It had my name on it. And I remember my mama come home. I said, "Mom, I got a check." And I showed the check to my mama. Mama said, "Give me that check. You ain't got no check." But I think my dad was getting disability or something. So each one of us kids got a check. So he always made sure that we were still provided for. Like I said, he never just completely left and we never saw him again. But I just had that resentment for him leaving us and leaving my mom like he did. And I held that in for many years. But as years went by, as I got older, as I said before, there wasn't a time when I called my dad and he didn't come. I remember when I got pregnant, how he was upset. I remember when my mom signed for me to get married. I remember him being upset. I've said many times that I never liked school. I prefer working over going to school. And I had gotten a job at a cookie place in Hewlett Mall in Fort Worth, Texas. Didn't have no car, nothing, no way to get there. And so on some nights, I wouldn't have a way home because the bus would have stopped running by my house at a certain time of the night. It didn't run. So some nights my dad would have to come pick me up. And I remember him lecturing me and saying, you know, you think you know everything. You know, me and your mama went through things, so y'all can learn from us and don't have to go through it. And you don't want to go to school. I remember my manager, she was giving me like a new position, like shift leader or something like that, where I would close the store out. So this particular night, she was training me on how to close the store. And I probably was going to make like maybe 10 or 15 cents extra to be the shift leader. And my dad was picking me up that night. He was teaching me how to count the register down and, you know, tally up everything. So I'm looking like, and I'm getting nervous because I know my daddy's out there waiting on me. My dad was the type of person that will say whatever is on his mind. He is not going to hold back. And so while she's showing me how to close the store down, I look and I see my daddy coming down the escalator in the mall. And I was like, uh-oh, here come my daddy. And he stood in front of the cookie counter with his arms folded. Just wait. And I was like, oh, Barbara, this is my daddy. Daddy, this is my manager. And she was like, oh, hi, how are you? I'm just teaching Tara some new things. She has a new position. And I'm teaching her some new things. And my daddy looked at her and said, oh, teaching her how to do your job. Is she going to get your pay? I was like, oh, Lord, I'm fired. And he made that lady so nervous. She said, oh, Tara, you can go. She let me go home that night. Some of my ways I get from him. Some of my ways I get from my mom. The part of me that's always trying to come up with side things to make money, I get that from my dad. The part of me that's quiet and hold things in, that part I get from my mom. But also, if after holding things in and I finally go off, the words you will hear from my mouth, I got them honestly, because it will be like my dad talking through me. And my dad cursed like a soldier. Actually, my mama cursed like a soldier too, but my mom would have to be mad or something. My dad just, that was part of his conversation, just cursing. I have that in me, but like I said, I have to be kind of pushed to it. But when it comes out, you'll be looking like, where did this woman get this language from? And the first word you hear might be MF. MF. Yeah, get that from my daddy. When we were kids, he would come by on Saturdays and he would take us to this ice cream parlor called Ashburn's. And I would be so excited to go to Ashburn's. And sometimes he would come get us and we would go to McDonald's. And he would say, where you want to go, Miss Longhead? I don't know why I would always say McDonald's. There was nothing I ate there but French fries. He had this white Cadillac at one time. When he would come get us to take us to McDonald's, he would say, where we going, Miss Longhead? And I say, McDonald's. And he would say, look at our McDonald's. And I remember the first time he let me curse, I was so excited. My daddy loved Johnny Guitar Watts. And I was in his Cadillac And my dad was the first man that I saw to have a TV in his car and a sunroof. He had a white Cadillac with a TV and a sunroof. And he was letting me hang out the sunroof. And he was playing Johnny Goodtar Watson. Ain't That a Bitch? And so the part came, if y'all know that song, where he's about to say, ain't that a bitch? And I knew that song, and I was like, that part was coming. I said, Daddy, can I say it? Can I say it? And he said, sing it, Miss Longhead. And I said, ain't that a bitch? Just as loud as I could. I was so happy that my daddy let me cuss. I was so happy. I think I just took for granted as I got older that my dad would always be here, always be in my life. As long as I was alive, I never thought about the fact of me being here and my dad not here, living. My dad is 11 years younger than my mom. So my mom got sick. I went in the nursing home many years before my dad ever took sick. And my dad was just like Superman to me. He always had money. He always had nice cars. Or Superman, like nothing could happen to him. He always hustled. As far as I can remember, I never know of my dad working a 9 to 5 or a clock in, clock out job. My dad was always a hustler. And he was never broke. I remember one time I wanted a car so bad. Because I was working. I wanted a car to get back and forth to work. I was tired of riding the bus. And I had went to this little tote no car place and paid like a couple of $100 down on me this little tote no car that I was going to have to pay payments on every time I got paid. My dad came to my mom's house and saw that car. And he said, where you get that car? And I told him the little place on Lancaster. I told him no place where I got the car. He said, you call him and tell him come pick that shit up. I'm gonna get you a car. And I did what he said. I told him, y'all can come pick your car up. And I don't know how much longer it was. Maybe like the next weekend or something. I was at home. And my daddy came over there and he said, come look at your car. And he had parked it in the backyard. And I went out the back door. And I looked and I saw that car. And I said, this is the car you got me? I said it in my mind. I didn't say it out loud. It was a 1979 Lincoln Mercury Cougar. And if y'all know those cars were super long. He had bought it from his friend. He had had a paint job put on it. He had white wall tires. He had tinted the windows. It had air conditioning. It was paid for. I didn't have to make no payments. One thing my dad never believed in was making car payments. Throughout my adult life, he bought me 2 more cars after that. Y'all know I was married to a minister at one time when I took him to meet my dad. I think he had already asked me to marry him, or we had already decided to get married. And I took him to meet my dad. And I just thought my dad was going to be just so impressed. I was so excited for my daddy to meet him. We went to my dad's house. And the minister had the gift of gab. And so he was talking to my dad. And to me, he was just sounding so intelligent. We were in my daddy's living room. And he was telling my dad, like, the things he had accomplished or whatever. And my dad was sitting there listening. And my dad just let him talk. And I was sitting there like, my daddy is going to be so impressed. Just smiling. And my dad was saying, oh, okay, all right. After he finished talking, my daddy looked at me, y'all. My daddy said, Miss Longhead, you ain't got shit. is wrong? You're wrong. I was so mad at my daddy for saying that. And so my ex-husband was like, no, you're wrong about me. I'm a man of God. And my dad was like, okay, all right, man of God. And he was like telling my dad, no, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm a good man. My daddy said, okay, son, go on, prove me wrong. And we went on to get married. My daddy walked me down the aisle like a good father would. And maybe a few months after, my daddy's words rang true. I didn't have shit. And a few months after me and him got married, my car had stopped running. Something had happened with my car. And I was having to drive my ex-husband's car. He got mad about something and took his car. He knew I didn't have no transportation to work. What'd I do? Daddy. Call my daddy. He took his car. I don't have no way to get to work. My daddy came and got me. My dad always had more than one car. My dad say, F that mother. Took me to his house. Handed me the keys to one of his cars. I had my dad's car. Ended up divorcing that husband, as y'all know. So my dad was always there for me. Even after I divorced that husband and when I got remarried to the husband after him. The one that I spoke of before that was physically abusive. If you watch the entanglement video, it's the husband I was married to at the time when I had the entanglement. He had physically abused me. I never told my daddy. I told my brother the second time. My brother that's right over me. After that second time when he physically abused me, I had no feelings for him, none whatsoever. Then I ended up getting into that entanglement. So I was cheating. And he knew I was cheating. I was openly cheating. Because the whole time we had been married, he had been cheating on me. But he couldn't take it. Each time that he had physically abused me, he was drunk. So when he would come home drunk and start, talking about, like, what am I doing, or whatever, I would grab my keys and I would just go to my daddy's house. And I'd call my dad on my cell phone, say, Daddy, I'm outside, open the door. My daddy never asked me, like, why I was there. Because sometimes it would be, like, late at night, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And he would just come to the door, open the door. He had an extra bedroom. And I would go in his extra bedroom and go to sleep. And he would come in there waking me up when it was time for me to go to work. He was my, like, safe haven to run to if I thought that my ex-husband was in that state of mind to where he might jump on me again. And not long after that, I think is when my dad, like, kind of went down. He was already on dialysis. He would go to dialysis a few times a week. He was still mobile, he was still independent. He was still hustling. But my aunt died. My dad's sister. And it seems like after my aunt died, he and her were really close. It seems like after that my dad kind of like gave up. He ended up falling, and after that fall, he went in the hospital, and that's when I kind of realized I was going to lose my dad. Then from the hospital, he went to like a rehab. He went into another hospital there. He ended up in hospice. And I went to go see him in hospice. He was still alert. And he had shaved all his hair off. He was clean shaven. He wasn't saying much. And I started crying. And I was like, I'm not telling him goodbye. And I started crying, and I said, Dad, I'm just not ready for you to go. I started crying. And he put his hand up, to take my hand. As soon as he did that, there was a knock on the door. Some of his Muslim brothers had came to see him. So that kind of cut our visit short. I had never prepared myself. I just always thought my daddy would be here because he was such this, strong man. And his death really affected me. It's like I took for granted that he would always be here. And so I kind of regretted not, trying to get closer to him. But I didn't realize how much closer to my dad I was than I was my mom. I always thought that I was a mama's girl. But I actually realized that I was a daddy's girl. I regretted not just calling him just to say, Daddy, what you doing? Not just going by there. It was like, anytime I called him, it was like, Daddy, what you need, Miss Longhead? Like, his name held so much weight. So I had got me a cash card one time, and I think that sucker wouldn't pass inspection. I'm calling him saying, Daddy, my car won't pass inspection. And he told me, go to this place. Just tell me you're Omar's daughter. That's what everyone called him, Omar, because he had changed his name. And so I remember getting to the place, and I said, I'm Omar's daughter. And I was getting ready to roll my car up on the thing to where they inspected. He said, no, just park it over there. And all I did was park my car and just waited. I didn't have to pay for the inspection sticker. He was like, you Omar's daughter. Omar got it. And there's so many instances that I can remember just calling my dad, and he would always show up. Not one time I called and he didn't come. And as I said earlier, that I had kind of held a resentment towards him for years, for him leaving us and leaving my mom. And there was one time I had been dating this guy, and we had broke up. Me and my dad were in a car together, and I think my dad was kind of like chastising me or something. He was like, why none of my daughters can't get no halfway decent man? And when he said that, that's when I unleashed that resentment that I had been holding in for him for all them years. And I turned to him and I said, what, Daddy? A man like you? And I think because I was so young, when he left us, he didn't think that I remembered any of that. But he realized that day I remembered. And I was telling him, I said, I remember you leaving us. I said, I remember coming home from school. You had took all the furniture. I remember how you treated my mama. And I was telling him, like, I remember him cheating on my mom and bringing his woman to my mama's house while she was in the hospital. I said, you told us that she was our Amy. I remember all of that, Daddy. So I told him I remembered all of that. And I said, so that's the type of man you sent out to get, a man like that, a man like you? And my dad said nothing. He let me finish unleashing. He let me get it all out. And he looked at me and he said, Miss Longhead, I'm sorry. He said, I don't have no excuse. He told me that my mom was a good woman. She didn't deserve it. And he apologized without trying to make an excuse. Right when he apologized, it was like that resentment, that weight, that anger that I'd had inside of me, following me, it was gone. And another incident, he was there for my daughter just as much as he was there for me if she needed him. There was a time when me and my daughter were estranged. Her daddy had custody of her at this time. And once her dad got custody of her, if she did something wrong, his punishment for her would be her not being able to see me or to talk to me. And I remember I wanted to see her, and he wouldn't let me see her, and he would let her talk to me on the phone. And I called my daddy. And I told my daddy, Daddy, he won't let me see her, and he won't let me talk to her on the phone. My dad said, come get me. I went and got my daddy. We went to my daughter's father's house. I don't know what I thought my dad was going to do. So, my dad was talking to my daughter's father and his wife at the time. They were talking all bougie-fied and acting like as if I was a bad influence on my daughter. Saying like they want to make sure she finished school because they both had gotten their education. He was like, I got my diploma. And she was like, and I've got mine. And they were saying that because they knew that I had dropped out of high school. Because I had dropped out of high school when I was married to my daughter's father. It's like they were acting like, if she's around you, she knows you didn't graduate. It might make her not want to graduate. And so I stood there real calmly. And I said, yeah, that's true. I didn't graduate from high school. I was taken out of school by somebody who promised my mama they were going to make sure I stayed in school, which was you, which was her father. And I said, but no, I didn't graduate, but I did go back and get my GED. And I said, but just because I didn't graduate, don't mean that I don't want my own child to graduate. I'm her mother. Why would I not want her to finish school? And we went to talking on after that. My dad kind of, was like the mediator. We made peace or whatever. So me and my dad went back to his house. I took him back home. And I don't know who was at my daddy's house, but he was telling them what had happened. Y'all, I kind of took this for nothing at the time, but it means so much to me now. I don't know if it was one of my sisters there, but he was telling them what had happened, and he was saying how my daughter's father and his wife was saying like how they had got their education and this and that. And he said, but my daughter, he started beating his chest. My daughter made me so proud. And he was telling them, what I had told her father. He said she let him know. No, I did. I went back. I got my GED. And he was like, my daughter made me majestic. And he started crying. He would cry at the drop of a dime regarding his girls. He's like, she made me majestic out. And he looked at me and said, I'm proud of you. He told me he was so proud of me at that moment. And I was like, oh, okay, Daddy. So I just kind of blew it off as, my daddy getting emotional. But like now, just remember my daddy saying those words to me. And I had done nothing at that time, y'all. I was a high school dropout. I hadn't really accomplished much in my life. But now just knowing that, hearing those words that my father was proud of me and told me he loved me, it means so much to me now. It's like, I don't have to sit and wonder if my daddy loved me or if he was proud of me. Because he made sure he told me. He made sure I knew. I worked for the hospital for over 20 years. Most of those years I worked as a receptionist in another building away from the hospital. But it was still part of the hospital. My daddy was so proud. I can't count how many times my dad came up to that job with somebody in the car to show them his daughter. that he said was the executive administrator. I was a receptionist. But he would just show up so many times. And I remember I would get so nervous when I see that little black Lexus pull up, because we had a glass door of the building. So when he pulled up, he would park right in front of the door like he owned the place. And he would come in there. Sometimes he would show up and put money in my hand. He was so proud of me. And everybody that worked with me, they knew that's Tara's father. One time I was at lunch in the break room eating. Somebody came in there and said, "Tara, your dad's here." I was like, "Oh Lord, is he in the building?" 'Cause once he got in the building, as I said, he would say anything. So I was running down the hallway to meet him and get him out of there. He was already talking to one of my coworkers. It was a guy. And the guy was saying, "Oh, you're Tara's father." He said, "Well, her mama say she mine. You know mama's baby, daddy's maybe." I said, "Daddy, come on, let's go outside. Let's go outside." I really miss him. It's like I never imagined that my dad would not be here. So I guess I just didn't really prepare myself as an adult, just being here without my dad. There's that part of me inside, you know, that's still my daddy's little girl, even as an adult. So when he passed away, it was like that part of me died. Like that part of me that's my daddy's little girl, that part of me ain't here no more. When he passed away, I never told anybody this, but it's like I think I kind of lost it a little bit mentally, or I don't know how to explain it. When my mom got sick and ended up having to be in a nursing home, and my dad was still here, you know, my dad was still up being super dad. Plus he was 11 years younger than my mom, even when he was on dialysis, because he was still mobile and able to do things. He was still living an independent life. It never crossed my mind that my daddy would be here. So when he passed away, it was like it's like something happened in me. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to describe it. It's like that piece of me died or something. I don't know. He ain't there for me to, you know, go and listen to him talk crazy. Oh man, I wish I would have been on YouTube when he was here. I wish I would have been able to get him on camera, because he was such a character. His death affected me not in a good way. And as I said, when my ex-husband would come home drunk, I would just get my keys and go to my daddy's house. That was my safe haven. So when my dad passed away, I told myself at my dad's funeral, he know I don't have nowhere to run to no more. So I made up my mind not long after my dad passed to divorce my ex-husband. And I know that if my dad was still here, I would have never left that job. But after my dad passed, I would still expect to see his car sometimes pull up in front of that glass door before we had moved to another building. I was glad we moved to another building, but I was also sad. I had lost my dad, and I had lost a friend that I was real close to, and he worked for the hospital. He was kind of like the brother. So when my dad died and he died, my mind was just kind of warped. But I realized how much of a daddy's girl that I was, that I am, once he was not here no more. Because my dad I could talk to. we could have conversations. He would make you laugh. But I remember he was dating this mail lady. She was a postal worker. She delivered the mail. I had started making gift baskets, and he was proud about that. He brought his girlfriend, the mail lady, over there to see all the baskets that I was making, because I had made some for my church members. And I remember seeing her, and I was like, gross. My daddy loved big women. Small waist and big old, ginormous booties. She was a big woman. And she wore these tight male pants, and you could see every dent in her bottom. And I said, Daddy, she looks kind of nasty. And my daddy said, yeah, you know, she looks a little trifling, but oh, she done showed me some things I ain't know nothing about. That's enough, Daddy. I don't want to hear no more. So yeah, he would give a little too much information if you let him. So that is my Tara's talk about my dad. I wish he was still here, y'all. Thank y'all for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one.